This man bought a brand new car worth 40 million naira for a sales representative, all because of love, without thinking twice. You won't believe what she did afterward. Trust me, guys, it will truly amaze you. Be sure to subscribe to this channel for more of our latest movies. Esther was her parents' only daughter, and life had never been easy for her or her mother. She had just finished school with a degree in business administration, but instead of celebrating, she found herself struggling to find a job. Her father had passed away years ago during a heart transplant surgery, leaving Esther and her mother to face the harsh realities of life alone. With no stable source of income, her mother, Mrs. Grace, sold food by the roadside to make ends meet. It was exhausting, but it was all she could do to put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. Meanwhile, Esther spent her days searching for a job, walking from office to office, submitting applications, and hoping that someone would give her a chance. One evening, Esther came home feeling completely drained. She dropped her bag on the old wooden chair in their small apartment and let out a deep sigh. "Mum, I'm really tired," she said, rubbing her forehead. "I've been searching for a job for over a month now. Every time they just tell me they'll get back to me, but no one ever calls. I don't know what else to do." Her mother, who was stirring a pot of soup over their little gas stove, turned to face her with a gentle smile. "My dear, don't lose hope. I know it's tough, but God will make a way. You just have to keep trying." Esther sighed again. "I just feel so useless. I worked so hard in school, thinking that getting a degree would make life better. But here we are, still struggling." Before her mother could respond, there was a loud knock at the door. Esther exchanged a worried glance with her mother before going to open it. It was their landlord, Mr. Fred. His face was stern, and his eyes were filled with impatience. "Good evening, sir," Esther greeted hesitantly. "Good evening," he replied, though his tone was far from friendly. "I came to remind you that your rent is now 4 months overdue. I've been patient enough, but I can't wait forever. You have 2 months to settle everything, or I will have no choice but to evict you." Mrs. Grace quickly wiped her hands on her apron and stepped forward. "Please, sir, just give us a little more time. Business has been really slow, and Esther is still looking for a job. We're doing our best." Mr. Fred shook his head. "I'm sorry, madam. I've already been more than patient. 2 months. That's all you have." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving mother and daughter standing in silence. Mrs. Grace sank heavily into a chair, holding her head in her hands. "Where am I going to get that kind of money?" she muttered. Esther knelt beside her, taking her mother's hands in hers. "Mum, please don't worry too much. We will find a way. I promise. Something good will happen soon." Tears welled up in Mrs. Grace's eyes. "I just don't want us to lose this house. It's the only place we have." Esther squeezed her hands gently. "We won't lose it. I'll keep looking for a job, and we'll find a way to pay the rent. Let's just stay strong, okay?" Her mother nodded weakly, though the worry on her face remained. That night, as Esther lay on her small bed staring at the ceiling, she made a silent vow to herself. No matter what it took, she would find a way to support her mother and change their lives for the better. The struggle wasn't over, but she refused to give up. The next morning, Esther woke up early, determined to continue her search for a job. She dressed neatly in a simple blouse and skirt, tied her hair in a ponytail, and grabbed her worn-out handbag, in which she kept extra copies of her resume. Before leaving, she turned to her mother, who was already preparing food to sell for the day. "Mum, I'm heading out again. Wish me luck," she said with a hopeful smile. Mrs. Grace looked up from the steaming pot of soup and smiled. "May God favor you today, my dear. Don't give up." "I won't, Mum," Esther replied as she stepped out. As she walked down the street, scanning shops and office buildings for any vacancy signs, something caught her eye. A large banner in front of a car dealership read, "Vacancy, sales representative needed." Her heart leaped with excitement. "Finally, an opportunity," she muttered. Without hesitation, she walked into the dealership, took a deep breath, and approached the receptionist. "Good morning, ma'am. I saw the vacancy sign outside. I would love to apply for the position," Esther said politely. The receptionist nodded and directed her to Mr. Paul, the administrator in charge of hiring. Inside his office, Mr. Paul, a middle-aged man with glasses, looked at her application and then frowned slightly. "Miss Esther, I appreciate your interest, but I'm sorry to inform you that this position is reserved for a male candidate, not a female," he said firmly. Esther's heart sank, but she refused to back down. Taking a deep breath, she responded confidently, "Sir, with all due respect, I really need this job. It doesn't matter that I'm a woman. I can do the work just as well as any man. I have experience in business and I am a fast learner. Please just give me a chance to prove myself." Mr. Paul stared at her for a moment, impressed by her persistence and confidence. He tapped his fingers on the table, deep in thought. "All right," he finally said, leaning forward. "I'll give you a deal. If you can sell one of our newly imported luxury cars within a month, you'll earn a good commission and get the job permanently. But if you fail, the deal is off." Esther's eyes widened with determination. "Deal," she said without hesitation. "Good. You have 4 weeks," Mr. Paul said, handing her the company's sales guide. That evening, Esther rushed home, excitement bubbling inside her. As soon as she entered their small apartment, she found her mother resting in a chair after a long day of work. "Mum, you won't believe what happened today," Esther exclaimed, almost breathless. Mrs. Grace sat up, concerned. "What is it, my dear?" "I got an opportunity at a car dealership. They didn't want to hire a woman at first, but I convinced them to give me a chance. The only condition is that I must sell one of their latest imported cars within a month to get the job permanently." Esther explained, her eyes shining with excitement. Mrs. Grace's face lit up with joy. "Oh, my daughter, this is great news. I know you can do it." "I will, Mum. I have to. This is our chance," Esther said determinedly. The next day, Esther arrived at the dealership, ready to prove herself. She studied the cars, memorized their features, and practiced her sales pitch. She made phone calls to potential clients, followed up on leads, and did her best to attract buyers. Days passed, and although she spoke to many customers, no one was ready to buy immediately. Still, she remained hopeful. That same week, a well-dressed man in his 40s walked into the showroom. Esther quickly approached him with a warm smile. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to 1 and 2 Automobile. How can I assist you today?" she asked. The man nodded approvingly at her enthusiasm. "I'm actually interested in your latest luxury model. I've been thinking about getting a new car," he said. Esther's heart raced with excitement. She guided him to the sleek, brand-new imported vehicle and passionately explained all its features. "This car is top of the line, sir. It's fuel-efficient, has advanced security features, and the interior is pure luxury. It's a perfect combination of comfort and performance," she said convincingly. The man seemed impressed. After a few more questions, he finally said, "All right, I like it. How much is it?" "It's 15 million naira, sir," Esther replied, holding her breath. The man nodded and took out his phone. "Let me make the transfer now." Esther could hardly believe it. She was about to close her first big deal. But just as he was about to finalize the transaction, his phone rang. "Excuse me," he said, answering the call. Esther watched as his expression suddenly changed to one of shock and excitement. "What? My wife is in labor right now! Oh my God, I have to go!" He quickly put his phone away and turned to Esther. "I'm sorry, young lady. I have to leave immediately. My wife is about to give birth." Without another word, he rushed out of the dealership. Esther stood frozen, watching him leave. The deal was gone. The sale she had worked so hard for had just slipped through her fingers. That evening, Esther sat on her bed, feeling frustrated and exhausted. She picked up her phone and called her best friend, Favor. "Hello, Favor," she said, her voice heavy with disappointment. "Esther, how's work going?" Favor asked excitedly. Esther sighed. "It was going great, until today. I had a customer ready to buy a car worth 15 million naira. He was literally about to transfer the money when he got a call that his wife was in labor. He ran off, and just like that, the deal was gone." Favor gasped. "Oh no, that's so unlucky, after all the effort you put in." "Exactly. I was so close, Favor. I really need this job, and now I don't know if I'll be able to make another sale before my deadline." "Listen to me, Esther," Favor said firmly. "Don't lose hope. You still have time. That sale didn't happen, but another one will. You're smart, determined, and hardworking. Keep pushing." Esther took a deep breath, letting Favor's words sink in. "You're right. I can't give up now. I still have 3 weeks left. I have to keep trying." "That's the spirit," Favor cheered. "I believe in you. You've got this." As Esther ended the call, she felt a renewed sense of determination. She wasn't going to let one setback stop her. She had made a promise to herself and her mother. She was going to get this job. And she wasn't giving up until she did. The following week, which was the second week of the month, Esther was in the office. Although different customers came in to inquire about cars, no one was ready to buy. She felt disappointed, and to her, the month seemed to be slipping away too quickly. By the third week, Esther was back at the dealership, feeling the weight of her deadline growing heavier with each passing day. She had tried so hard to close a sale, but every time she thought she was about to succeed, something would go wrong. But that day felt different. A customer named Mr. James walked in with determination in his eyes. He was tall, well-dressed, and looked very serious about buying a car. Esther approached him, her heart beating a little faster than usual. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you today?" she asked, putting on her best professional smile. "I'm here to buy the Benz you have on display. I want to make a deal," Mr. James said firmly, not wasting any time. Esther's eyes lit up. Finally, this was it, a serious buyer. "Of course, sir. This way, please." She guided him to the sleek Benz, showing him all its features, from the smooth leather seats to the advanced technology. She could feel the excitement building inside her. This was the sale she had been waiting for. But just as she thought the deal was sealed, a group of police officers stormed into the dealership. "Police! Everybody stay calm!" one of the officers barked, his voice stern. Esther froze, confused, as they approached Mr. James. "What's going on?" she whispered to herself. The officer looked at her and said, "We're arresting this man. He's been involved in a series of bank hacks, stealing millions of naira using his laptop. He's a highly wanted criminal across the country." Esther's heart sank. What? No? He seemed so serious about buying the car, she thought, her mind racing. The police took Mr. James away, leaving Esther standing there, utterly shocked and disappointed. Another sale, gone. Another opportunity, lost. The next day, Esther sat alone in the living room of their apartment, staring out the window. She was deep in thought, her mind filled with worry. "What will I do? I have only 1 week left to make a sale, or I'll lose my job," she muttered to herself. "And we still have rent to pay, which is due in a month. How am I going to do this?" She ran her fingers through her hair, feeling completely frustrated and hopeless. Closing her eyes, she whispered a silent prayer. "God, please help me. I really need a miracle right now." She felt like she had tried everything, but nothing was working. The weight of the situation pressed down on her shoulders, and she couldn't help but wonder if things would ever get better. The following Monday, as Esther prepared for another long day at the dealership, she tried to shake off her discouragement. But as the hours passed, no customers walked in, and no promising phone calls came through. Frustrated and on the verge of giving up, she left work early that day. That night, Esther sat on the couch, arms crossed, staring blankly at the floor. Her mother, Mrs. Grace, walked in and immediately noticed her daughter's troubled expression. "Esther, my dear, what's wrong?" she asked gently, sitting beside her. Esther let out a frustrated sigh. "Mum, I only have a few days left before the month ends, and I haven't sold a single car. If I don't make a sale, I'll lose my job. What's the point of going to work tomorrow? There's no hope." Mrs. Grace placed a comforting hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Don't say that, Esther. You never know what can happen. God can turn things around in an instant." Esther shook her head. "Mum, I've tried everything. No one is buying. I feel like I'm just wasting my time." Her mother smiled softly. "My child, you must never give up. Even when things seem impossible, keep pushing forward. You should go to work tomorrow with faith. Who knows, a miracle could be waiting for you." Esther hesitated, then sighed. "Do you really think so?" Mrs. Grace nodded. "I know so. God sees your hard work. Trust him." After a long pause, Esther finally managed a small smile. "Okay, Mum, I'll go to work tomorrow, but honestly, I don't know what to expect." Her mother patted her back. "Just have faith, my dear. Everything will work out." Though still uncertain, Esther felt a little lighter. Maybe, just maybe, tomorrow would be different. The next day, Tuesday, Esther walked into work feeling indifferent, expecting another fruitless day. But just as she settled into her routine, she noticed a young man walking toward her. He looked well put together in a casual outfit with sharp features and a confident air about him. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" she asked, forcing a smile despite her exhaustion. The young man, who introduced himself as Ben, strolled into the dealership with his hands tucked into the pockets of his jeans. His sneakers were slightly dusty, and his plain t-shirt and relaxed posture made him look like someone who had just come to browse, not to make a serious purchase. He wandered around lazily, glancing at different cars without asking any detailed questions. Then he stopped in front of one of the most expensive models in the showroom, a sleek, top-of-the-line luxury vehicle. "I'm interested in buying this car," he said casually, his tone so nonchalant that Esther almost thought he was joking. She hesitated, eyeing him carefully. "This one?" she asked, pointing at the car to make sure he wasn't mistaken. Ben nodded, unfazed. "Yeah, I've been looking around and I think this one is perfect." Esther's eyes flickered with uncertainty. Something about the way he spoke made her doubt him. Customers interested in this kind of car usually carried an air of seriousness. They either wore expensive suits, asked about customization options, or at the very least, seemed aware of the kind of money they were about to spend. But Ben, he looked more like someone who had wandered in off the street out of curiosity. Still, she remained professional. "Are you sure, sir? This car is worth 20 million naira, she said, carefully watching his reaction. Ben gave a small shrug, as if she had just told him the weather forecast. "No problem." Esther's brows knitted together. Maybe he hadn't heard her properly. She cleared her throat. "Sir, I mean 20 million naira. That's a lot of money." Ben turned to her with an amused smile. "Yeah, I know." He said it so casually that it completely threw her off. There was no hesitation, no nervousness, just pure confidence. Esther struggled to hide her skepticism. Does he even have that kind of money? She wondered. She had seen many people walk into the dealership, act interested, and then back out the moment they heard the price. But Ben seemed different. He wasn't in a hurry, he wasn't trying to impress anyone, and most importantly, he didn't flinch at the price. Still, she proceeded to show him the car's features, expecting him to start second-guessing his decision at any moment. But he didn't. When it was time to make the payment, Ben casually pulled out his phone, tapped on the screen a few times, and within seconds, the full 20 million naira had been transferred. Esther stood frozen. Wait, is this real? Her heart pounded as she quickly checked the transaction details. Sure enough, the payment was legitimate. She turned to look at him, completely stunned. "Sir, it's confirmed. The payment went through." Ben flashed her an easygoing smile. "All right, great. So when can I take the car?" Esther was still processing what had just happened. He had just spent 20 million naira as if he were buying a loaf of bread. Finally regaining her composure, she said, "Thank you, sir. I apologize for doubting you earlier." Ben simply smirked, slipping his hands back into his pockets. "No problem. It's my pleasure." And just like that, he walked away, leaving Esther standing there, utterly speechless. That evening, Esther rushed home to share the good news with her mother. As soon as she walked in, she couldn't contain her excitement. "Mum, you won't believe it! I did it! I sold the car, the 20 million naira one." Mrs. Grace, who had been busy preparing food for her roadside business, looked up, her face lighting up with joy. "What? Really? Oh, my daughter, you did it! I knew you could!" Esther hugged her mother tightly. That same day, Ben was at home, hanging out with his friend Mark, enjoying a relaxed evening. They sat on the couch, sipping drinks and chatting about their day. Ben leaned forward, a big grin on his face. "Mark, you won't believe what happened today at the dealership," he said. Mark raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? What happened?" Ben's eyes lit up as he recounted the story. "I met this amazing lady at the car dealership. She was smart, beautiful, and had this incredible presence that totally caught my attention." Mark smirked. "Really? Did you get her number?" Ben shook his head, a hint of regret in his voice. "No, I didn't. I was too nervous, and I didn't know what to say." Mark nudged him playfully. "Come on, man. If you really like her, you need to make a move. You can't just let the chance slip away." Ben sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I know. I wish I'd been braver. Next time, I'm going for it. I won't let my nerves hold me back. Mark clapped him on the shoulder. That's what I like to hear. Trust me, if you really want her, you'll figure out a way. Don't wait too long, okay? Ben smiled, determination building in his eyes. You're right, Mark. Next time, I'll make sure I get her number and ask her out. I won't miss my chance again. The following day, Wednesday, just as Esther was settling into her routine at the dealership, she saw a familiar face walk through the doors. Ben. She was surprised to see him again so soon. Quickly composing herself, she approached him with a polite smile. Good morning, sir. I wasn't expecting to see you today. I hope there's no issue with the car? Ben chuckled. No issues at all. The car is perfect. Then, how can I help you today? Esther asked curiously. I want to buy another car, Ben said casually. Esther's eyes widened. Another car? Sir, you just bought one yesterday. Ben shrugged. Yes, but I want something even better. Do you have the latest model of the Royal Cruiser? Esther nearly gasped. Sir, that car is worth 40 million naira. I know, Ben said with a slight smile. I'll take it. Esther was stunned, but she quickly composed herself and proceeded with the transaction. Just like before, Ben filled out the necessary paperwork, made the full payment without hesitation. As he was about to leave, he turned back to her. Esther, can I have your number? Just in case I need another car in the future. Esther hesitated. She had gotten used to Ben's unexpected ways, but this request caught her off guard. Sir, I'm sorry, but it's against our company policy to give my personal number to customers. Ben nodded, a small smirk playing on his lips. I understand. And with that, he left. The following day, Thursday, Ben returned to the dealership. This time, he was eyeing an even more expensive car. As they walked around the showroom, discussing the vehicle, Esther couldn't help but ask the question that had been on her mind. Sir, with all due respect, she said, looking at him curiously, do you really need all these cars? Ben chuckled, slipping his hands into his pockets. Not really. I just love cars. Esther hesitated for a moment before carefully suggesting, Sir, instead of buying so many cars, have you considered investing your money in something more profitable, like real estate, forex trading, stocks, or even business ventures? Ben tilted his head, clearly intrigued. Wow, you must really know a lot about investments. She smiled. Yes, sir, I do. Ben suddenly stopped walking and turned to face her fully. Do you want to sell me this car or not? Because instead of buying it, I might just go and invest this money instead. Esther's eyes widened as she realized she might have just talked herself out of a sale. No, sir, that's not what I meant at all. I still want you to buy from us. Ben chuckled at her nervousness. I think I have an idea. I'll take this one. Esther stared at him, shocked. Wait, sir, are you serious? Without hesitation, Ben pulled out his phone and made the full payment. Esther, still in disbelief, quickly checked the transaction details to confirm. Just as she was about to thank him, she noticed Ben looking at her name tag. He seemed to be thinking about something, then smirked slightly. Esther, could you help me with something? He asked casually. She looked up. Sure, sir. What is it? Ben held up the car registration document. I need to sign this, but my wrist has been hurting all morning. Can you sign for me? Esther hesitated. Sir, I don't think that's allowed. Besides, our signatures are different. Ben waved off her concern. It's just a formality. Don't worry about it. After a moment of reluctance, Esther finally signed where he pointed, thinking she was just helping out a good customer. Once everything was processed, she walked him to where the car was parked. As they reached it, Ben suddenly handed her the keys. She blinked in confusion. Sir, I think you're giving me the wrong keys. Ben shook his head, a playful smile on his lips. No, Esther, this car doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you. Esther frowned. I don't understand. Check the name on the documents, Ben said simply. With shaky hands, Esther flipped through the paperwork and froze. Her name was right there, signed, official. Her eyes widened in shock. Wait, how? Sir? She was lost, trying to comprehend the moment. Then she asked, Sir, what do I owe this pleasure? Ben shrugged. Think of it as a reward for all your hard work, a kind gesture from me to you. Esther's mouth opened, then closed. She was speechless. No customer had ever done something like this for her before. Still in disbelief, she looked up at him. I don't even know what to say. Thank you so much. Ben grinned. You're welcome. But there is one thing you can do for me. She nodded eagerly. Anything, sir. He pulled out his phone and smirked. Can I have your phone number? Esther laughed in excitement and without hesitation gave it to him. That same day, just as work was closing, Esther's boss called for a general staff meeting at 1 and 2 Automobile Company. The employees gathered in the showroom, curious about what was happening. The boss stood at the front, clearing his throat before speaking. Good evening, everyone. I called this meeting to acknowledge something truly remarkable. He paused, scanning the faces of his employees before landing his gaze on Esther. Esther, please step forward. Everyone's eyes were on her, and her heart pounded in anticipation. The boss smiled. Esther, you have proven beyond any doubt that you are exceptional and an asset to this company. In just 1 month, you managed to sell 3 of our top newly imported models, something no one has ever done in the history of this company. The room filled with murmurs of approval, and some colleagues clapped. Esther stood still, overwhelmed by the praise. Because of your outstanding performance, the boss continued, we are officially offering you permanent employment. And not just that, you are being promoted to top sales manager. The room erupted in applause. Esther gasped, covering her mouth in disbelief. Additionally, the boss added, you will receive your agreed-upon percentage share from each car sale. On behalf of the company, we sincerely thank you for your hard work. Esther's hands trembled as she accepted the promotion letter. Thank you, sir. I don't know what to say. I'm truly grateful. Her colleagues patted her on the back, congratulating her as the meeting wrapped up. That evening, as soon as Esther got home, she burst into the house, practically glowing with excitement. Mum! Mum! Guess what? She called out. Her mother, Mrs. Grace, rushed out from the kitchen. What is it, my dear? Esther beamed. First of all, Ben bought me a brand new car, and then at work today, my boss gathered everyone for a meeting and publicly recognized my efforts. They officially hired me and promoted me to sales manager. Mum, I still can't believe it. Mrs. Grace gasped, her hands flying to her chest. Are you serious? Oh my God, my daughter, I am so proud of you. She pulled Esther into a tight hug. As they laughed and celebrated, Esther's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Ben? Mrs. Grace smirked playfully. Ah, speak of the devil, she teased. Esther rolled her eyes and answered. Hello? Hey, Esther. Ben's deep voice came through the phone. How are you? I'm great, Ben. And you? She replied, still smiling. I'm good, just wanted to check on you, and also I was wondering if you'd like to go on a date this weekend. Esther playfully nudged her mother but sighed. Okay, Ben, I'll meet you this weekend. Ben chuckled. Great, I'll send you the details. Looking forward to it. As soon as she hung up, Mrs. Grace gave her a knowing look. So, a date, huh? Esther shook her head. Mum, it's just dinner. He's just a friend. Mrs. Grace laughed. We'll see about that. By the weekend, Esther and Ben were seated at a cozy upscale restaurant, enjoying a candlelit dinner. The conversation flowed easily as they talked about work, life, and their dreams. After a while, a comfortable silence settled between them. Ben took a deep breath and looked into her eyes. Esther, there's something I need to tell you. She raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Okay, I'm listening. Ben exhaled, then smiled. From the first day I met you, I was drawn to you. That's why I kept coming back. Buying cars, it was just an excuse to see you. Esther blinked in surprise. Wait, what? Ben chuckled. Yes, I admired your dedication, your passion, and your kindness. I didn't just buy those cars because I loved them. I bought them because I wanted to get closer to you. Esther was speechless. She had never expected this. Ben reached for her hand. Esther, I really like you, and I would love for us to be more than just friends. Will you be my girlfriend? Her heart pounded. She hadn't seen this coming. For a moment, she remained silent, processing everything. Then a slow smile spread across her lips. Yes, she finally said. Ben grinned, his eyes lighting up. You won't regret it. And with that, their journey together truly began. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this interesting story. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more of our latest Nollywood movies.